Good morning and welcome to this week's episode, the first of this week. Today is the 9th day of September, Anno Domini 2024. I am Elio Rosa, founder of the Nehemiah School of Government and of this podcast, the Anno Domini Action Podcast. And this week, as I informed a few of you last night, we are going to be talking about an event that is coming up, the Constitution, the public reading of the Constitution. Let me just bring it here to you. Here it is. So, as many of you do know and have been with us before, have participated in these events, this is the sixth year in a row that we will promote, we meaning the Nehemiah School of Government, going to promote the public reading of the founding documents. First, we started with the founding documents of the United States. So on July the 4th, we have the public reading of the Declaration of Independence. Then September 17th, which is next week, we have the public reading of the U.S. Constitution. And November the 11th, we have the public reading of the Mayflower Compact, the first civil charter for the colonies when the first pilgrims reached Plymouth Rock in 1620. So on November 11th that year, it means 404 years ago, we had our first founding document. So what we do is we go to a park, we go to a mall, we go to a church, we go to a parking lot, we go to a memorial. Usually I like the Veterans Memorial. We did that this event there several times. We just bring a podium and portions of each one of the documents in a sheet of paper, in a microphone and a speaker. Sometimes we did not even have a microphone or a speaker. And then voluntarily, spontaneously, people come to the podium and they read a portion of their founding document, meaning the American founding documents. And then so that was 2018, 2020 actually. In 2020, we started the public reading of the Texas Declaration of Independence also, which is held every year on the second day of March. So these are the dates: March the 2nd, July the 4th, September 17th, and November the 11th, that we have the public reading of these four founding documents: three founding documents of the United States of America, one founding document of our great state of Texas, the Lone Star State. So this year we're going to have a very, very special occasion, because this is the first time that we are going to have immigrants from different nations. I have a list of 13 representatives from 13 nations of the world. We know that here in the oil business field, here in the Permian Basin, Midland, Odessa especially, we have people from close to 70 nations of the world living here, and they come to work in the oil field, in the oil business. Not only the oil field, but the oil business in general. Come here to study, as well as at UTPB, University of Texas of the Permian Basin, or Midland College. So this is the time. This year we're going to have representatives from 13 countries, and I hope all of them are there. We're going to have tomorrow the first meeting just to define who is going to get which portion of the U.S. Constitution to read. And I believe it's going to be a wonder of wonders, because I had never been able before to attract the attention of immigrants in this area, legal immigrants that have been here for a long time or just arrived recently, but people that love our nation, people that identify with the principles and values this nation was founded upon. So it is going to be a wonderful event. So again, it is going to be next Tuesday next week, September 17th, from 7 to 8 p.m. And the place is the Noel Heritage Plaza in Odessa. It's in the heart of Odessa, downtown Odessa. I think 1 block away from the Odessa Hospital. And I hope you are there. I hope you share this invitation to your family, share it with your church people, share it with your colleagues at work, your network of friends, share it everywhere so that we can have many folks there to read what I usually call the blueprint or the birth certificate of our nation. So these 2 documents, the Declaration of Independence, actually the 3 of them, the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution, are the blueprints or the birth certificates that we have as a nation. And if we want to go back, if we are not comfortable at all with everything that's going on right now, the mess that is in this country right now, and how the Constitution, how the laws are completely being dumped, this would be a wonderful time for people to, as Jeremiah was inspired by God to write to the people of Israel, go back to the ancient paths. I have been beating this drum here for at least 6 years, ever since the Nehemiah School of Government came to life 6 years ago, formally at least. We need to go back to the basics, to go back to the principles, go back to the ancient paths. And nothing better to get there than to read our founding document, because I believe that the founding document, especially the U.S. Constitution, is probably the most important guidance that we have to go back to get there. So again, September 17th, next Tuesday, 7 p.m., Noel Heritage Plaza, downtown Odessa. Please be there. Please bring as many people as you can for this special moment. So I'm starting today, because of the Constitution Day next Tuesday. I am going to be taking the week and investing time in the podcast to talk about all the ramifications, everything that has to do with the Constitution, what the impacts were that the Constitution created in this country, what makes America, the American Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, different from many countries in the world. The Federalist Papers, which were 85 documents written by 3 guys, John Jay, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton, to explain, first of all, why the Constitution was the way it was, and expand on the behind the curtain principles and values that gave us the Constitution the way it was given. And I'm going to be talking in one of the slides today that there were a couple of the founding fathers, a group of people, a group of them representing colonies that were not comfortable at all with the Constitution. They are called anti-federalists because the Constitution was pretty much a federalist type of document, meaning what the anti-federalists saw was that there was too much power concentrated in the central government, and they did not want that. They wanted power to the states. This is why we have the Bill of Rights first, with 12 amendments, and then out of the 12, 10 were approved. So the 10 initial amendments right after the ratification of the Constitution, and then all the 17 other amendments coming throughout time. So we needed they believed that they needed the amendments because the amendments would somehow strip Washington, D.C. It was not Washington, D.C. in the beginning, it was New York. But it would strip the capital, the power to go all the way to the capital, the power to go all the way to the hands of federal guys, right? The federal government, specifically the 10th Amendment that shared powers with the state and with the individual. So we're going to be talking about that all throughout this week, and then Monday and Tuesday next week. So 7 days, we're going to be talking about the Constitution, small snippets each day between today and Tuesday next week. So I love this quote from Ronald Reagan. I read it a long time ago, and this quote pretty much has been inspiring and giving me guidance on how to understand the U.S. Constitution. Our president in the 80s, Ronald Reagan, said, quote, "Ours was the first revolution," he's talking about the American Revolution from 1776. "Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government. And with three little words, we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It does not tell us," meaning the government doesn't tell us what to do. "We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government that it is allowed to do or what it is allowed to do. We, the people, are free." So we understand what Reagan is saying here, but many Americans do not. And a growing number of Americans today do not understand at all what he is talking about. When he says we are the pilots, we are the drivers, and the government is the car, well, what does that mean for the rest of the world? It's completely different. I am going to be comparing the American Constitution with, for example, the Brazilian Constitution quickly today. I might do this more throughout the week as time goes by. But in the preamble of the Brazilian Constitution, the country that I was born in and I came from, the preamble starts like, "We, the representatives of the people." And then you have the whole Constitution after that. And here it starts, the preamble of the Constitution is, "We, the people." So that is a big, massive, that is a catastrophic difference between one and the other, because the first one in Brazil, it says, and this is the Brazilian Constitution from 1988, the seventh Constitution in less than 200 years. "We, the representatives of the people," means we, the representatives of the people, will tell you what to do. We are more important than the people. And here in the United States, the US Constitution starts by saying we, the people. And then every single article, every single clause within, and every single amendment is going to reinforce the idea that the government, what we call government today, is actually not the government. The government is we, the people. We, the people, are the ones that are piloting or driving this big car. Should not be big, by the way, but we allowed it to grow massively. And now every single time that happens, we know exactly the conclusion to that. The end of this story is also always tyranny and despotism. This is what we are experiencing here. And Reagan is saying exactly that. Remember when he said that there are 9 words that he is mostly terrified of, and the words are, "We are from the government and we're here to help." So that should be the mindset of Americans. And to you, and pretty much I'm preaching to the choir here in the Permian Basin, you understand that pretty well. But when you go to places, well, even here in our area, there are people that don't understand that at all. First, the ones who are born here but are not taught these principles. Secondly, the immigrants that come from countries where the government there is actually the bureaucratic body of people that tell them what to do and what not to do. So they need to be retaught. They need to change the chip or the memory card that they bring when they come here. So this is what the purpose of the Nehemiah School of Government has been for 6 years now, and we are going to keep doing that. So let us talk about our U.S. Constitution. There's so much to talk about it. And again, we just have 7 days of pretty much close to 30 minutes each day. We are just going to scratch the surface here, but it is going to be enough for us to understand what it means for us to read this document in 7 days, 8 days, if we count today, next Tuesday in Odessa. So the American Constitution has 7 articles, and these 7 articles are comprised of 4,440 words with 27 individual rights called amendments. Each one of the amendments were focusing on taking even more power from the federal government and giving more power to the states, first of all, and then to the people. This is what a constitutional federative republic means, right? We are a federation of states who got together and gave the states agreed to first initially 13 states agreed to give some powers to the federal level so that the federal level could make the 13 states one republic. The idea initially was, okay, could we think about transforming each one of the states into a republic in itself? So we would have 13 republics. And the Federalists on their side would say no, because we would not have power to defend ourselves. We would not have a centralized control and command body that when we are attacked, or for example, in terms of money, finances, we need finances to rule and to govern and to control things that go on in the 13 states, the initial 13 states. After 1776 and in the ratification of the Constitution in 1789, we need to have a powerful central government to do that. The anti-federalists would say, well, we don't need a powerful centralized government at all. We don't want that. And by the way, they did not want, these guys, the anti-federalists, they did not want to sign the Constitution the way it was. So in the Federalist Papers, we see that. So they call themselves, the 3 guys, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison, they called themselves like a pseudonym. I think that's how you say that. It's a given name, a name that they gave themselves, Publius. Publius was a Greek philosopher, a Greek politician, a Roman, not Greek, a Roman politician that they gave themselves the name of, and they wrote 85 articles, 85 newspaper articles to explain the Constitution and why it was important to have a federal, centralized, powerful government in order to maintain the 13 states together, right? Now, the other group, the anti-federalists, would come forth. They came forth and they gave themselves the name of Brutus. Brutus was one senator, one Roman senator, the guy that actually he was a friend to Julius Caesar, and he stabbed his own friend when, they went into a frenzy. I mean, the senators did. They went into a frenzy and killed Julius Caesar because they believed that he was going to become a dictator. He was already a dictator, a tyrant, but not like a soft type of tyrant, but they were afraid that would escalate and he would become somebody that would crush everybody under his feet. So they kill him, and Brutus is one of the guys very close to him. And there is this in the biography or in history, there are those massive, powerful words. Julius Caesar looking at Brutus, his close friend, in the Senate, and Brutus is stabbing him to death. And he says, even you, Brutus, right? So that is what the anti-federalists got the name or gave themselves the name of to write about the dangers or how it would be a betrayal to the nation, to this newly formed or created nation of 13 colonies, former colonies, now states, to centralize power in a central government, to give all the federal government all power. So Publius and Brutus, they write, they debate, they argue against each other's ideas and values. And at the end of the process, the Federalists win the day because they say, well, we need a centralized power because we need one republic. Just one republic, not 13 republics. We need one republic under one flag, under one constitution, under one set of rules for everybody to follow. But the promise that they gave the anti-federalists was the promise that the Constitution was going to be amended. If you sign it the way it is, we are going to amend it. We're going to write a Bill of Rights in order to give the states and the individuals powers, in order to take a little bit of the power of the central government and give it to states and to individuals. There was only one state out of the 13 that did not sign the ratification of the Constitution. It was Rhode Island, but the 12 other states signed it. So we had the Constitution ratified on September 17th in 1789. And then they wrote the 10 First Amendments, that is called the Bill of Rights, and we all know them. But my focus will not be on the Bill of Rights, because Bill of Rights, every country in the world, even China, even Russia, they have a Bill of Rights, right? And as Antonin Scalia, a video that I prepared for you today, is going to say, they have Bill of Rights that are even, quote unquote, better than ours, right? But let's focus on our Constitution. So 7 articles only, 27 amendments, in a whole, because initially was only 10, and then throughout time 17 more. 4,440 words. That is the shortest constitution in the world today. And by the way, before I forget, the American Constitution is the only original constitution in the world today. Countries in the world today not ratify, they change, they revise, they review their constitutions in an average of 17 years. Every 17 years in average, the countries revise their constitutions. In my country, Brazil, for example, in less than 200 years, they have revised it 7 times. We have 7 constitutions, the last one being from 1988. And this one from 1988, meaning 30, 88, 98, 2008, 30 years, 40 years, right? It has already over 100 amendments in 40 years. So you see that is a trend all across the planet. And the American Constitution is the only one that stays the way it was. It was amended only 17 times after the initial 10 amendments were incorporated into the Constitution called the Bill of Rights. Just for you to have an idea, this is the Brazilian Constitution. So remember, the American Constitution is only 4,440 words long. The Brazilian Constitution, well, the 7th Constitution, the first one being 1824, the 7th edition, or the 7th Constitution, 1988. This one from 1988 is the 3rd longest constitution in the world, with 64,488 words, 25 articles, 143 amendments, 79 rights. So what is it that you have in the Brazilian Constitution? The 7th one, the last one from 1988, you have a lot of rights. And usually when you have a lot of rights, you have almost nothing of duties. You just have rights. You don't have duties, right? So this is the problem here, because it is an exaggeration of laws. It's an overburdening of laws that people never know which laws they are fulfilling by breaking others, or breaking by fulfilling others. So it is unbelievable. But now you also need to understand that we're talking about the Brazilian Constitution because the states in Brazil have their own constitutions as well, like here in the United States. And sometimes the laws of the states in Brazil break or contradict directly what is written in the Constitution. And so it is just unbelievable that they co-inhabit, they co-live, they live at the same time. And people don't know if I obey the law of the state, am I breaking a federal law? And if I break the federal law, am I going to be sent to jail because I am complying with the state level or the state law? It is a mess, guys. It is a complete mess. I had friends from Brazil or in Brazil telling me that so many times, especially business people, business friends of mine. They would say, it is impossible to comply with the federal laws and the state laws and the local laws so many times because they contradict each other. And I don't know which laws I'm breaking by complying with those from a different level, state or federal. So it is a mess. So 64,000 words compared to 4,000 words of the American Constitution. So it is a wordy constitution. Now, there are constitutions that are worse than the Brazilian. Remember that Brazilian is the third longest in the world. The version or the constitution from 1988. India's constitution is the longest in the country today. It has 146,385 words. And Nigeria is the second constitution, largest constitution, longest constitution in the world, 66,263 words. Every single time a country puts so many words in a constitution, it's pretty much a document that cannot be complied with. You just can't. Right? And this is why the American Constitution is so to the point, so straightforward. But the most important thing in the American Constitution, probably above anything else, as Ronald Reagan said in the quote that we just read, the U.S. Constitution tells the government what they can or cannot do. The citizens, we the people, tell the government what they can do and what they cannot do. The problem with the other constitutions of the world is that the Constitution, the letter of the law, tells both the government and the people, and in so many instances, much more, they tell the people what to do and what not to do, what they can do and what they cannot do. Why? Because the government is the source of the power, not the people. Although China has a country, the country of China is called, officially called the Republic of China, Popular Republic of China. In North Korea is the Democratic Republic of North Korea. So they say it that it's democratic. They say it's a Republican country, but it's not. The government has all the power. The people has no power whatsoever. This is exactly the same for any Western country in the world, except for the United States of America. Here, we still have a constitution that many say that the Constitution here is already dead. We are in a moment of lawlessness. Glenn Beck and Mark Levin, two of our most important voices out there, both of them said in the past, especially after 2020, they said that our Constitution right now is a part of a museum because the Constitution is not being complied with anymore. But it's still there. It's still there. We are going to be reading it next Tuesday because we need to understand that in order to go back to what the premises and the principles and the values are, we need to understand what they are by reading them, by studying them. And when you do that, you are doing that route back to the principles. As Prophet Jeremiah told the people of Israel, go back to the ancient paths. That's what we mean by that? Here's our Constitution. Very straightforward, 7 articles. Article 1 refers to Congress. That is the first power. The first branch of government is the legislative body. So Congress is represented, and everything that relates to our legislative body is expressed in Article 1. Article 2, the presidency or the executive branch. Article 3, the courts, the judicial branch. Article 3, Article 3, courts, judicial. Article 4, states. So everything that relates to the states in a federative republic. Remember, federation of states that give birth to a republic. Article 5 talks about the amendment process, how you make an amendment to the Constitution, and it happened 27 times, actually 17 times, because the initial 10 times were the Bill of Rights. They were created, not amending the Constitution, but being added to the Constitution. So we have 27 amendments. This is the reason that we have 10 and then 17. Article 6, the Supremacy Clause. What is the Supremacy Clause? Is whenever there is a problem in the state law, whenever there is a noise, whenever there is a disharmony in a state law, the Supremacy Clause says that the Constitution of the United States overtakes the state laws. Everything that there is no clarity about a state law, the Constitution of the United States, the federal Constitution, the Constitution of the country decides what is to be done or not. So it is supremacy. There is a supremacy of the U.S. Constitution over the supremacy of the Constitution of the states, although there are so many things in the Constitution of states that are not prescribed in the federal Constitution. And when there is this problem, or when two states have a problem between two, for example, neighboring states like Texas and Oklahoma, when there is a problem, an argument between the two states, the branch that solves that problem is the Supreme Court, is the judicial branch. So all of that is inserted into what we call the U.S. Constitution, that exactly tells us which branch of government is to be dealing with which specific problem in our the relationship of the between the states and between the states and the federation. Article 5 is, again, we read about that, amendment process. Article 6, Supremacy Clause, the oath of office. So the oath of office is, it says that every single officer, elected or non-elected, will have to swear an oath of allegiance to the U.S. Constitution in order to be able to serve. This is what we see, for example, in the inauguration of allegiance to the U.S. Constitution and to the country. And also Article 6 talks about the no religious test for any office or any department or anything, any service to the nation cannot be qualified. Nobody can be subjected to a religious test in order to serve in whatever position in the country, especially the elected positions. So you see here that there is no such thing as, and when people say, well, there is no interference between, or not interference, but relationship between church and state, this is very clear in this clause here of Article 6, that there will be no religious test for whoever wants to serve. You can be of any religion or no religion at all. If you are somebody that aligns with what the premises and the protocols of the Constitution determines, you can serve the country. So that is included in Article 6. And Article 7, it talks about the ratification and the attestation of the U.S. Constitution, meaning the clauses that define and determines what the Constitution is all about, consolidating those set of values as we have them. What about the Bill of Rights? And I'm going to wrap up here. What about the Bill of Rights? Well, everybody talks about rights in our age today, correct? Everybody is just focused on what is it, what is in there for me? What is in there for me to take advantage from, right? The Bill of Rights was, again, a demand from the anti-federalists to the federalists. Just reminding again you, the Federalists wanted a centralized, powerful government, or at least more powerful than the states. The Anti-Federalists did not want that. They wanted more power to the states. And the way to balance that was to create a Bill of Rights, giving people and the states powers that would not be messed with by the federal government. So those are the boundaries. The Bill of Rights are boundaries to the Constitution. But what I want you to understand is that, again, as you're going to see in the video now, by Justice Antonin Scalia, one of my heroes, not with us anymore. He died. I believe he was assassinated, but doesn't matter right here, right now. He died a couple of years ago. And this guy wrote, lots of books prolifically. He was a prolific speaker, prolific writer. And I have pretty much all of his books, and I have been following his work ever since even before I arrived in the United States of America 8 years ago. And I wanted you to watch this movie or this video. It's a 6-7 minute video that he is in front of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. The Judiciary Committee in the Senate, based on the Constitution, is the commission or the committee that confirms the Supreme Court justices. By now, you probably know that because of the many problematic cases that we had. For example, Kavanaugh, right? Remember that all the senators in the Judiciary Committee are there, and Kavanaugh is being confirmed, and all of a sudden that volcano erupted and a mess that was created. So that is the Judiciary Committee of the Senate. So the Senate has the power to confirm Supreme Court justices and federal judges as well. Let us listen to and watch what Justice Scalia had to say about the Bill of Rights and how it is not as important as the U.S. Constitution. And we're going to wrap up here today. Let me bring to you here the video. Oh my God, I did not upload it. Let me do that right now. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry about that. Constitution. Here we are.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm happy to be back in front of the Judiciary Committee where I started this pilgrimage. I am going to get even more fundamental than my good friend and colleague. Like him, I speak to students, especially law students, but also college students and even high school students, quite frequently about the Constitution, because I feel that we're not teaching it very well. I speak to law students from the best law schools, people presumably especially interested in the law, and I ask them, how many of you have read the Federalist Papers? And well, a lot of hands will go out. No, not just number 48 and the big ones. How many of you have read the Federalist Papers, cover to cover? Never more than about 5%. And that is very sad. I mean, especially if you're interested in the Constitution. Here's a document that says what the framers of it thought they were doing. It's such a profound exposition of political science that it is studied in political science courses in Europe. And yet we have raised a generation of Americans who are not familiar with it. So when I speak to these groups, the first point I make, and I think it's even a little more fundamental than the one that Stephen has just put forward, I ask them, what do you think is the reason that America is such a free country? What is it in our Constitution that makes us what we are? And I guarantee you that the response I will get, and you will get this from almost any American, including the woman that he was talking to at the supermarket, the answer would be freedom of speech, freedom of the press, no unreasonable searches and seizures, no quartering of troops in hope, those marvelous provisions of the Bill of Rights. But then I tell them, if you think that a Bill of Rights is what sets us apart, you're crazy. Every banana republic in the world has a Bill of Rights. Every president for life has a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights of the former evil empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, was much better than ours. I mean it literally. It was much better. We guarantee freedom of speech and of the press. Big deal. They guaranteed freedom of the speech, of the press, of street demonstrations and protests, and anyone who is caught trying to suppress criticism of the government will be called to account. Whoa, that is wonderful stuff. Of course, just words on paper. What our framers would have called a parchment guarantee. And the reason is that the real constitution of the Soviet Union, you think of the word constitution, it doesn't mean a bill, it means structure. Say a person has a sound constitution, has a sound structure. The real constitution of the Soviet Union, which is what our framers debated that whole summer in Philadelphia in 1787. They didn't talk about the Bill of Rights. That was an afterthought, wasn't it? That constitution of the Soviet Union did not prevent the centralization of power in one person or in one party. And when that happens, the game is over. The Bill of Rights is just what our framers would call a parchment guarantee. So the real key to the distinctiveness of America is the structure of our government. One part of it, of course, is the independence of the judiciary. But there's a lot more. There are very few countries in the world, for example, that have a bicameral legislature. Oh, England has a House of Lords for the time being, but the House of Lords has no substantial power. They can just make the Commons pass a bill a second time. France has a Senate, it's honorific. Italy has a Senate, it's honorific. Very few countries have two separate bodies in the legislature equally powerful. That's a lot of trouble, as you gentlemen doubtless know, to get the same language through two different bodies elected in a different fashion. Very few countries in the world have a separately elected chief executive. Sometimes I go to Europe to talk about separation of powers. And when I get there, I find that all I'm talking about is independence of the judiciary. Because the Europeans don't even try to divide the two political powers, the two political branches, the legislature and the chief executive. In all of the parliamentary countries, the chief executive is the creature of the legislature. There's never any disagreement between them and the prime minister, as there is sometimes between you and the president. When there's a disagreement, they just kick him out. They have a no confidence vote, a new election, and they get a prime minister who agrees with the legislature. And, you know, the Europeans look at this system and they say, well, it passes one house, it doesn't pass the other house. Sometimes the other house is in the control of a different party. It passes both, and then this president who has a veto power vetoes it, and they look at this and they say, it is gridlock. And I hear Americans saying this nowadays, and there's a lot of it going around. They talk about a dysfunctional government because there's disagreement, and the framers would have said, yes, that's exactly the way we set it up. We wanted this to be power, contradicting power, because the main ill that beset us, as Hamilton said in the Federalist, when he talked about a separate Senate, he said, yes, it seems inconvenient, but inasmuch as the main ill that besets us is an excess of legislation, it won't be so bad. This is 1787. He didn't know what an excess of legislation was. So unless Americans can appreciate that and learn to love the separation of powers, which means learning to love the gridlock, which the framers believed would be the main protection of minorities, the main protection. If a bill is about to pass that really comes down hard on some minority, they think it's terribly unfair. It doesn't take much to throw a monkey wrench into this complex system. So Americans should appreciate that, and they should learn to love the gridlock. It's there for a reason, so that the legislation that gets out will be good legislation. And thus conclude my opening remarks.
There you go, Anthony Scalia. By the way, I would like to show you this. These are two of my major achievements here in the United States of America. My certificate from Hillsdale College on the Constitution, the meaning and history of our U.S. Constitution. So I'm so proud of that and so happy, really joyful for this achievement. And the second one, also from Hillsdale College, the Federalist Papers that I have been reading. I keep reading the Federalist Papers doing that for over 20 years of my life. They are just amazing. So the last thing that I wanted to show you here again today, let me pick up my microphone so my voice does not vanish. You see this, and this is what I show my my classes, and my students have been showing this not only here in the United States of America, but I have been showing this in many countries of the world. I did, at least before I came to America. The Founders Bible, and the Founders Bible is the foundation of the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights. This book here is a compilation of the three documents, and the two of them, the Bible and the documents, are the ones that found the Congress branch, the first branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. I believe that this visual is very easy to understand why America is different, why this country is different. First of all, and above anything else, because it is grounded on the Word of God, on the Bible, the principles that are in the Bible. And I'm going to show you some of these principles tomorrow. Close to 30% of the U.S. Constitution is based on not Bible quotes per se, but biblical principles. I'm going to be bringing some 68 tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here today. I went way over 30 minutes, 48 minutes, but I really wanted to bring to you all of these introductory words so that we could ground our development and the progress that we're going to have throughout this week. And then Monday and Tuesday next week, when we are going to have the reading of the U.S. Constitution on the 17th of September, Tuesday. So God bless you, and I hope to see you soon again. Actually, I hope to see you here tomorrow for our episode 68 of the Anno Domini podcast. God bless you. Bye-bye.